Welcome back to my channel. Before I continue, make sure you are hitting that notification bell to stay up to date with everything I'm posting. Today, we have the most recent Godzilla that has been released by Toho, as of recording this, Shin Godzilla. This one is a unique breed, so there's quite a bit to kind of go over before we actually talk about the film itself. So Legendary's Godzilla 2014, it wasn't even the top 10 highest grossing film of 2014, but the movie was well received enough among fans and performed well enough to warrant more Godzilla and a cinematic universe of its own, similar to the MCU. Today, this is known as the Monsterverse. You see, at the time it was projected the next Godzilla film would come out in 2018. However, this would not be. The movie would end up getting pushed back until May of 2019. In the meantime, this didn't stop one particular Godzilla film from slipping through, announced in late 2014, Shin Godzilla, to be released in 2016. So here's the deal. While Godzilla 2014 was accepted among fans, there was a certain group of fans that were critical of the fact this film was entirely different than what the teaser had presented. So the argument was this film didn't deliver with a dark undertone. If that was one of your main criticisms, then Shin Godzilla may actually fill in the voids for you. Shin Godzilla, by definition, is the start of the Shin Japan Heroes universe, which would consist of various Japanese iconic series such as Evangelion, Ultraman, Godzilla, and Kamen Rider, but the overall idea is to make sure that each of these film series is entirely separate. So not exactly like the MCU or the Monsterverse does, where we have a character we build and then after that there's one big giant crossover. In contrast to the Monsterverse, this film has a far more political take, with an overall approach of how would a country like Japan react to such crisis, or how would outside countries react and look to aid Japan in a time of need. So lots of this overall film isn't as clear-cut or simple as, say, most Godzilla movies where Godzilla arrives, deploy the tanks, the jets, fight Godzilla off. Not exactly that, but rather several variables are considered. Another big difference is the fact this film does not use the original Godzilla film as a jumping point, but rather this is the first time that Godzilla has been cited in this universe. So, they're dealing with an unknown terror, where a doomed country of Japan must think fast and defend themselves from a creature that they know so little about. It should also be noted that, like the original Godzilla film, which served as an anti-nuclear message, or how Godzilla vs. Hedorah was against pollution, and 1984's Cold War take, Shin Godzilla takes inspiration from real-world events that have impacted Japan. This time around being the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster, and the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, unfortunate events that impacted Japan on March 11th, 2011. Shin Godzilla isn't afraid to allude towards tragedy, making this a very layered film. And for the first time since Godzilla 98 and Godzilla 84, this would not be a versus film. One thing I always remember about this film is when it was coming out, I knew so little about it. Promotional material was very subtle. Despite that, all the hype was in the air for G-Fest 2016 around this film. For me, my first viewing wasn't until 2017 when this movie came out on DVD, but hey, better late than never. And it should be noted that Shin Godzilla uses a blend of CGI and motion capture, making it Japan's first Godzilla film to depart from the usual man in the suit which became synonymous and iconic with the Godzilla films. And though a puppet was actually created for this film, this went unused. But for a change of pace, it was interesting seeing a full-body Japanese Godzilla after what we were teased in Always Sunset on 3rd Street. We begin this movie with Japan's Coast Guard investigating a destroyed boat which is linked to an unknown creature. Lots of debate begins on whether this creature should be chased out of Tokyo Bay or it just be killed. And then there is the issue of, is this the humane thing to do to an unknown creature? But the creature begins moving onto land, becoming a direct threat and must be stopped. And this is where we get a good look at Japan's defense forces combating this threat, mapping out how to destroy this unknown creature which becomes known to them as Godzilla. But the alarming thing is they know so little about what they're fighting. So this is a quickly evolving situation and it really doesn't matter how closely Japan monitors the situation. It's impossible to predict something that you don't understand. Sure enough here, Godzilla has a few new tricks up its sleeve, evolving upright to make matters worse, as everything is happening. With this comes the struggle to evacuate a highly populated area, unless you want to go all in and accept that collateral damage is just gonna happen. But it's in the country's interest to protect civilians even if that means holding fire. Godzilla disappears, leading the country to formulate a plan as long as they have time available. In the midst of all this, they realize where the problem is and how he's powered. Godzilla is powered by nuclear fission, and has been feeding off nuclear waste dumped in Tokyo Bay for the last 60 years. Godzilla returns Every weapon they have, every assist is just meaningless. Godzilla marches forward, destroying everything in a linear path. Possibly one of the most remarkable scenes is the night attack. Watching Godzilla use his brand new atomic breath. Add in the fact that it has a powerful OST that leaves you in awe, seeing the most deadly Godzilla since GMK. It's just pure evil, the perfect organism, leaving a city in ruins, helpless. I'm gonna go ahead and pause up right here because I want viewers to actively watch this film. My intent is to basically give you my thoughts on this film, so I'm not looking to exactly spoil the entire plot of this film, but this film I endorse highly. Despite that, I will say some audiences might not enjoy this film like others. There's a lot of dialogue, this film is very politically based, and I could see some Showa and MonsterVerse fans losing interest. Another issue I've seen brought up often is Godzilla just walks forward the entire film, and I don't know how younger viewers will enjoy this film due to the fact it might not keep their interest due to the lack of kaiju battles. But when you take everything and put it into context, this film is alluding to real-life tragedies, a country that has experienced so much. I really do see the art in this film. It's a very layered film, and Godzilla feels terrifying and refreshing. It's a more modern take in making sure we don't forget the past, accomplishing the same thing as the original Godzilla went for and succeeds just like it. So let's talk about Godzilla's design now. I firmly remember being on the fence about this Godzilla design when I saw it. The design was a more radical Toho Godzilla design, but didn't stray away just like the '98 design did. It was still recognizable, it still was very much Godzilla. If anything, with no context in my lap, I was honestly more concerned about why Godzilla had atomic beams coming out his tail and spines, which I still think is a little extreme, but the idea was to illustrate that Godzilla has new tricks up his sleeve. Shin Godzilla to this day, at the moment recording this, remains Toho's most recent Godzilla film until we get Godzilla -1. A sequel has long been in the cards. Add in the fact this film teases there may be more terror on the horizon. During G-Fest 2017, Shin Higuchi spoke about how Toho would not allow him to produce another live-action Godzilla until after 2020, due to an agreement between Toho and Legendary. Now, would I like to see a Shin Godzilla sequel? Yes, I would like to see it. However, I'm not banking on this happening. So, if Shin Godzilla is a standalone film, then I'm at peace with that. It feels like a film that could stand completely on its own, memorable, and may not require any further story. It's brilliant in my eyes with so much depth. From everything it alludes to, watching the country of Japan respond to a fresh new incarnation of Godzilla. And that, people, sums it up for Shin Godzilla as I see it. Now it's time to shift gear back to the MonsterVerse. After a 12-year hiatus, King Kong is back. But there's more happening than the usual King Kong story. Next time, Skull Island, where we detail Kong's story before he meets the King of the Monsters. Thanks again, like, subscribe, tell me what you think of Shin Godzilla.